The geography of life.
Biogeography is the study of geographic distribution of organisms. Alfred Russel Wallace and Charles Darwin believed that the pattern of organism distribution showed true fundamental evidence to support evolutionary theory. Darwin proposed in The Origin of Species several general observations of biogeography: that a species has a specific site of origin, it can accomplish distribution by dispersal, and a species can become modified and produce descendants in the various regions it disperses to. Wallace designated 6 biogeographic realms: the Nearctic, Palearctic, Neotropical, Ethiopian, Oriental, and Australian. The geographic distribution of taxa can be restricted or endemic to a specific geographic region. An example of a taxa that is endemic to North America is the salamander genus Phytodon. More specifically, the species Caedanosus is only found in the Caddo Mountains of western Arkansas. Taxa can also have disjunct distribution, in which related lineages have geographic gaps in their distributions. Some examples that illustrate disjunct distribution include alligators, which are found in eastern North America and eastern Asia, but nowhere in between. Boas are another example of disjunct distribution. They are found in tropical America and in southern Pacific islands. There are 3 major historical factors that have led to the distribution of taxa: extinction, dispersal, and vicariance. The distribution of a species may have been reduced by the extinction of a population. For instance, the horse family originated and diversified in North America, but later became extinct. It was only when they were reintroduced by European settlers that they began to flourish in North America again. Dispersal refers to the range of geographic distribution of a species due to movement of individuals. An example of dispersal is found in the distribution of cattle aggregate, which up until 80 years ago were found only in tropical and subtropical parts of the world. Due to their own dispersal, they are now found also in South America. Vicariance refers to the distribution of populations due to the formation of geographical or ecological barriers. How do we infer whether a species' distribution is accounted through dispersal or vicariance? Phylogenetic data can be used to infer the history of vicariance or dispersal distribution of clades. Dispersal distribution is commonly inferred if the area does not contain substantial taxa that might be expected to have if it had joined to other areas. Vicariance is most likely the result of distribution if a repeated pattern of phylogenetic relationships in a species is seen in different areas. The distribution of related members of a taxa on different land masses in the southern hemisphere can be explained by vicariance. The divergence in distribution of the related freshwater fish family Cichlidae found in tropical parts of Africa and South America coincides with the separation of their land masses during the Cretaceous period.
Continental islands. Continental islands are islands that were once connected to a continent but later separated either by rising sea level or moving continental plates. Continental islands can also be cut off with most of their species already in the area. Oceanic islands are islands that are never connected to a continent but arise from the seafloor as growing volcanoes. Oceanic islands lack many types of native species found on continents and continental islands. They have plenty of endemic plants, birds, and insects. Oceanic islands harbor a variety of new forms of life that arise from an ancestral animal or plant group. These species of animals and plants are most similar to species found on the nearest mainland or island, and in rare events of long-distance dispersal. Species that are not found on oceanic islands are land mammals, reptiles, amphibians, and freshwater fish. Oceanic islands offer lots of empty habitats that lack competitors and predators. Therefore, many of the animals and plants arriving in new and unoccupied habitats will evolve to thrive and form new species. Long-distance dispersal of a given species to a distant island cannot be a frequent event. Animals and plants can hitch rides to islands on logs or large vegetation that will float away from the mainland. Birds can carry seeds to distant areas. Ocean currents can also carry such seeds to distant islands. Small insects can be picked up by the wind. Plants, birds, insects, and other arthropods can easily be transported to nearby islands as opposed to land mammals and reptiles, which are heavy and cannot swim very far. Most amphibians and freshwater fish also cannot survive in salt water. Terrestrial mammals are not good colonizers and therefore are not found on oceanic islands. If dispersal were common, life on oceanic islands would be quite similar to that of continents and continental islands. The difference between marsupials and mammals can be seen in the reproductive system. Almost all marsupials have pouches and give birth to very undeveloped young. Placentals have placentas that enable young to be born at a more advanced stage. The earliest marsupial fossil is about 80 million years old and was found in North America, not Australia. As marsupials evolved, they spread southward in what is now the tip of South America. They made it to Australia about 10 million years later, where they began to diversify. The South Atlantic did not exist at the time when the marsupials migrated to Australia. South America, Antarctica, and Australia were once part of the supercontinent of Gondwana. We know their migration path because of fossil findings in both North America and Antarctica.
Species diversity is the measure of diversity within an ecological community. The distribution of flightless birds, such as the emu and ostrich, can be attributed to the current ecological factors they face, such as continental drift leaving them on land far from their origin, and sources of their food influencing their distribution. The existence of flightless birds is based on long-term evolution. Over time, the flightless birds have not needed to fly to reproduce or feed, and thus have evolved to be flightless. Both ecological factors and long-term factors make up the reason for the species diversity in a particular region. When compared to other taxons, more speciation and more diversity compared to species who arrive there via vicariance or dispersal, such as humans. Community convergence occurs when two regions presenting similar habitats and resources will result in species evolving to use and interact with them in similar ways, resulting in convergent evolution and co-evolution with features such as morphological and behavioral similarities, like the sword-billed hummingbird and hummingbird hawk moth, which look very distinctly similar. The summation of the evolution will result in species equaling the equilibrium and therefore filling in all the niches. In conclusion, the strongest evidence for evolution is provided through the geographic distribution of organisms. Movement of land masses explains certain patterns of distribution. Species are not created in different places, but have a single region of origin and have spread from there. The geographic distribution of almost every species is limited to some extent. vicariance and dispersal can result in gaps of distribution of species.